All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Novel Networking Group Coaching webinar. I call it a webinar. It's really just a call. So if you guys are familiar with Zoom, you've downloaded the app. You'll find it super easy to use. But just in case you're new to it, I want to point out a couple of features to make this call go really smoothly. First of all, I'm recording it, okay? So if you miss any part of it, there were a couple people who said they couldn't make it after all, which is fine. So I thought I'd record this, and if you are late or if you need to take off a little bit early, you won't miss anything, okay? So I'll send out the recording afterwards. But just pay attention to the items that are at the bottom of your screen, because those are the things that are going to allow you to participate. So first of all the people joining, I have you on mute. Okay, I can't hear anybody. Okay, so if you have a question and if you want to talk, just remember you have to unmute yourself. Okay, that's number one. Number two is there's a chat box, and this is how a lot of people actually get their questions out there. Just be aware that when you use the chat box, the default is that chat is going to be seen by everyone. Okay, not a problem, but just be aware that that's what's happening. There's a toggle box that allows you to just send it to me, the host. Either way is totally fine. After the presentation, I'll actually go through and answer the questions. And I actually have a few questions from the webinar on Monday. They were really good ones, so I want to make sure that you guys have those too. See, already getting some chats, which is awesome. I'm so glad you guys are here. I've just had people that are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to send it out to everybody. It's not a big deal. Just be aware that that's what's happening, okay? All right, let's get started. Let's get into it. We'll be here for about 40 minutes or so. If we need to go longer, we can, but that's usually how long these go. So I have some slides, so let me bring those up. Let me share my screen. How about that? All right. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Getting some yeses. Okay, good. All right. So Novel Networking Group Coaching Program. So this is something that I do at least once a year. I haven't traditionally done it more than that. But this is my favorite program. So if you've worked with me before, I love all of my programs. I really do. But this one is the one that other people love as much as I love it. And it's because there's so much angst around networking. I mean, there just is. And I'm not excluded from this, by the way. I mean, I went through years of experiencing networking angst, and I did all the right things. I researched online, I followed the best practices, and it just sucked. I hated it. It just felt so fake and so it is just a horrible experience. But I was in a job where networking was critical to my success. And so I was kind of in a bind, right? Because if networking was critical to my business development role and networking felt horrible, just awful, then where did that leave me? I needed to figure out a way to build business and network in a way that felt authentic, in a way that didn't feel fake and sleazy and just ugh. So I worked on it for a few years actually, and did a lot of experimenting, and then eventually when I left corporate and I became a career coach, and I founded Aurelian Coaching and the Career Prime suite of services, this was one of the cornerstones. I wanted to teach other people how to network in a way that was right for them. Okay, so here's what we are going to be reviewing today. First is who should consider this. So this is for people who were like me. You know you need to network. Everybody tells you that it's good for your career, um, but you don't like to do it for any number of reasons. Uh, you don't like to schmooze people. You don't like to be in big crowds. Networking events give you anxiety. You don't like to go up and talk to strangers and strike up a conversation, or you don't like to ask people for favors, or whatever it might be. It's awkward for you for one reason or another. Then you're in the right place. Okay, and then so during the course of this presentation, I'm going to give you some lessons. So these are things that you can do as soon as this webinar is over. I mean, literally, as soon as this call is over, you can turn off your computer and go network in a different and better way than you had been thinking about it before. And then I'll give you a few case studies. I brought 3 to the table because of how different they are. And I love these case studies. I love these people that I've worked with. And they're just really good ways for you guys to see how these networking lessons can be put into practice. Very tangible examples. And then however, if you join the Novel Networking program, whatever networking style or strategy we come up for you is going to be yet a completely different case. It's going to be a completely different scenario because it is going to be specific to you. This is the beautiful thing. And then I'll go into the details about the format of the program and how it all works, so you guys have that information. Okay. So when I was young in corporate, I got some advice from my boss at the time, who, by the way, my boss was amazing, brilliant person, very effective, very good. Yet gave me this piece of advice very early on. We worked together for a long time, but early on, my boss said, you'd better get comfortable getting really aggressive, or people are not going to respect you. And even at the time, sitting there, my 24-year-old self, however old I was, I felt like that can't be right. It didn't feel right at the time. But this is somebody who was seasoned, and I thought, oh my gosh, like what if that's true? I got to figure out a way how to be more aggressive. And so this is what happened. I got like more aggressive, like whatever that means. I got my version of more aggressive. And I fell so flat on my face. Like if I thought networking was bad before, networking in a way that just wasn't aligned to my personality and wasn't instinctive to me, it was so much worse. It was so much worse. And so, look, I am not suggesting that if you Google networking and you bring up all these articles of, best practices, do this and do that, and you'll get better results if you do X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying that those things aren't true. All I'm suggesting is that it might not be true for everybody. Okay, so if those networking best practices that you find online or in books work for you, or if some of them work for you, do it. Fantastic. It's beautiful. But if being aggressive or any other variation of networking best practices doesn't work for you, then I'm giving you permission to ignore all that and find a way to find a strategy that works for you, because there is a way. There is a way to get there. Okay. The first point that I want to make about networking is that this is not about being an introvert. So a lot of people will say, well, I don't feel comfortable networking. because I'm an introvert. You may be an introvert, that's perfectly fine. But for people who don't identify as an introvert and who have trouble networking, sometimes they feel like they're between a rock and a hard place, because if they don't identify as an introvert, well, then what's your problem? You should be able to get out there and network like crazy, right? Networking, I promise you this, networking doesn't have anything to do with personality type or how you are in this situation or that situation. It doesn't matter, is what I'm telling you. It doesn't matter. I can work with you to find a way to network for any given situation, for any type of personality, for whatever mood you might be in, frankly. Okay. This is not about fundamental personality type or just who you are as an individual. Okay. So if you have ever thought to yourself, I'm just not a good networker, that's just not my strength, you need to get that thought out of your head. It's not serving you, and it's not true. It's not true. At any point in time, you can decide to be a good networker. You just need to find the method that works for you. But this concept of fundamentally you are incapable of being a good networker, or it's just not who you are, is absolutely not true. Okay. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, everybody can be a great networker. I promise you, everybody can. The next thing that I want to talk about is to think about how to think about our networks. So this is from a study. It's a landmark study on business networking called The Strength of Weak Ties. This is an article from a very, very long time ago. But one of the results from this study was that when they asked people who had a job change, either a career change or a role change, or just moved to a different company, and they said, of those people, if you had help, if you had a contact who gave you a lead on the job or helped you land the job, can you characterize that your relationship with that person who helped you? And the results were pretty fascinating. So you would think a lot of people on a job hunt think of their immediate network, okay? And they tap into those people that they feel close to and that they see pretty frequently. And those are the people that they tap into. And when none of those people have job leads for them, the conclusion is, well, I've really tapped my network. And it turns out that there's this concept of weak ties, or what I like to call dormant ties, where these are people who you haven't talked to in a while. Okay? You haven't talked to them in a while. You worked with them at one point, and you probably had a good experience with them. But what ends up happening is that whether it's time or geography, so time or space, there's some distance. And that distance makes you feel as though they're no longer in your network, right? Because when you think of a network, you think of all the people that you know and like and have contact with and all of this stuff, and people who you haven't had a lot of contact with. And I'm talking years. People who you don't have contact with, you think they're no longer in my network. 82% of these job changers said that the people who helped them land a job or gave them a lead on the job were people that they only had contact with either occasionally or rarely. These were people that were not kind of swimming in the same pool that they were swimming in, right? Which makes sense. Like when you think about it, if you're looking for leads, if you're looking for opportunity, and if you're a little fish in a pond, the other fish in your same pond probably are aware of the exact same leads and opportunities that you're aware of, right? So once you've kind of tapped out, presumably you're doing your research and you're doing your due diligence and you're applying and you're doing all of these things. And when it's not getting anywhere, then you are asking around. But all those fish in the same pond know about the same stuff. They're probably going to do the things that you already did. So think about time and distance as being something that serves you when you think about your network, because those are people that maybe you haven't worked with them in a really long time. They are now swimming in a different pond. They're swimming in a different pond. Enough time has passed where they have grown their own network that is different from yours in the years that you haven't been working together, or they moved to a completely different area in the US and they just have a different network. You don't only want to tap into your pond, you want to tap into other people's ponds. Okay. So 82%, the people, I occasionally talk to this person, rarely talk to this person, and yet that's the lead that got me my job. The number one thing I hear about this is I feel so uncomfortable reaching out to so-and-so because it's so out of the blue and it just feels so uncomfortable. And, their response is going to be, why the heck are you calling me after all these years? Okay. You'd be surprised at people's reactions, especially if these are people that you worked closely with on a project. You were kind of put through the ringer on something together, and a lot of time has passed. When you pick up the phone, and these are clients that I have worked with where I tell them this strategy. I'm like, you got to call that person from 5 years ago where you had that role at that company 2 companies ago. Go call them. And they're like, no, I can't do that. That's weird. What am I going to say? And I say, do it. This is your homework. You paid me to tell you what to do. Go do that thing. I promise it's going to be good. They pick up the phone, they call that person, they have a conversation, and in our next session, they call me, right? And they say, oh my God, Nicole, it was the best conversation. It was like old times. And when I got on the phone and I said who they were like, oh my God, how are you? It's so good to talk to you. Tell me all the things. You'd be surprised at the response that you get from people. And, you don't get on the phone and say, hey, I'm looking for a job, right? I mean, you give them a call because you want to know what's going on with them. And during the course of the conversation, naturally, your job search will come up, or whatever else the purpose of your networking is for, right? But I would just encourage you to have a little bit of an experiment, okay? So this is something that I recommend that you do. One of the things that you should do after you get off this webinar is make a list of 3 to 5 people who you haven't talked to in a really, really long time. And you don't have any particular need. There's no objective or purpose here other than just to give them a call and say hi. That is it. If your concern is, why would these people talk to me and it would be so weird and I would come out of the blue and blah, blah, blah. Let's put that to rest immediately. Go ahead and give them a call and say, I was thinking about you the other day. I tracked down your number and I'd love to hear what's going on with you. That's it. And see how they respond. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. In fact, most of my clients have been delighted at the response that they get. Okay. So remember those dormant ties. Go beyond your pond and write a list of people that you haven't worked with in a long time or have moved far away and maybe are even in a completely different industry. Like maybe they pivoted out, right? And maybe you're striking them off the list because, oh, it's not even related. They're not even working anywhere where I work, Don't limit yourself. Think dormant ties you are going to be so delightfully surprised at the response that you get. Okay. So here's the other thing, and this is actually a nice quote that's kind of on the heels of the last concept of dormant ties, but this is from Brian Uzi, this concept of high stakes activities. Okay, so he said, powerful networks are not forged through casual interactions, but through sharing in a high stakes activities that bring together a diverse set of participants. Okay. So the reason I put this here is because I want you guys to focus on activities, whether professionally like projects or outside of your professional environment, like hobbies or volunteer, whatever it might be. Professional and non-professional activities. This is going to be such a beautiful source of networking for you. A lot of times when I talk to people about networking, they think of networking events. I hate networking events. I hate them. I hate them. Because is this your experience? What? Everybody hates networking events. Yes, right. This is like the number one thing. Sometimes when people come to me for the novel networking program, they're like, I just want to be better at these awkward, terrible networking events. And I always say, oh, stop going to those. like forget those. Those are so useless. Because what happens is, at least this is what happens with me. I go to those and I don't know a soul. I'm expecting to meet lots of different people. And what happens is everybody is talking to people that they already know for the whole time. There's no exchange of ideas. There's no, conversation about trends in the industry and like opportunities and leads and what problems are people trying to solve. No, it's like, hey, let's go to this thing where there are some free drinks and there are like 3 people and they have the intent to do networking, but they don't really. They just sit around and gossip about what's happening at the office. Gosh, it's a waste of time. So I recommend not doing networking events. There are a couple of exceptions. One is if you are able to vet the event in advance. There's a lot of V's there. Vet the event in advance. If you can get a sense of, how the event is actually run, like if you can talk to the event sponsor, that's a fantastic way of figuring out if that event is right for you. If you just see it scrolling through your like meetup, opportunities, I'm not sure just randomly going to something would be good. But if you can get a sense of how do these go, maybe talk to people who've been there before. It might be a better way to decide if it's worth your time. But even then, questionable, right? Because you can have, during the course of a few hours, you can have 10 conversations and maybe get like one lead that is, maybe a 50% like opportunity. Like it's not even, the ROI on those things are so low. So I don't know why you would take time out and go, spend an evening or an afternoon on one of these things. There's no ROI. But the other thing that would be really good, and where I do recommend networking events, is if you've come up with an elevator pitch, or if you're preparing for an interview, or whatever it might be, and you want to practice. You want to practice your delivery to a real live breathing person that is not the mirror, okay? Is not the mirror or your camera on your phone, right? And you want to go practice. Okay, now these random networking events are fantastic because you're probably never going to see those people again. So you go up and then you say, hey, I'd love to get your feedback. I'm trying to work on my pitch. Do you mind if I use you as a guinea pig? That's it. Okay. And then you don't have to worry about it because, if it's not, you're not going there to collect leads and it's only for practice, That's a really good environment. And then if you feel terrible about it, you never have to go again. Who cares, right? So don't think of networking events for networking. Think of activities with shared goals. Now, Brian Uzi talks about high stakes activities. Sure, the higher the stakes, the more you are in a team working toward a goal, and where it feels like it matters, you're going to forge relationships there. Really, really good relationships that you can leverage years later. Again, dormant ties. If you haven't talked, if you guys were part of a volunteer activity together, like in college or after college, and it's been some time, and you track them down and you give them a call, like, yeah, you guys, were on the front lines of something really important at one point. But I would say it doesn't even have to be high stakes. It doesn't have to be high stakes. Any type of shared experience through an activity where there was a goal, there was a purpose, you guys were trying to accomplish something together, is a hugely bonding thing. And that's a beautiful way to leverage that experience, leverage those relationships for networking goals. And it doesn't have to be, a networking event. And, really just stop. I give you permission to stop going to networking events, because unless you found really good ROI with them, I'd be interested to know. Yeah. So yeah, there are some people who say that networking events have worked for them. I love it. Good. Good. There's a difference though. So one thing that I want to make a distinction of is you can go to a networking event and enjoy yourself, right? But for all networking, you should have a goal or objective, right? So you go to a networking event because your objective is to find X number of leads for a job, or to, maybe you have a professional goal that involves finding a mentor, right? So you need to network in order to find a good match for mentorship. It could be just like practicing. I'm not saying that networking events have no utility, but just make sure that you have a very specific goal when you participate in them. Because it's one thing to go and enjoy yourself, especially if there's alcohol involved, right? Of course, you can go and enjoy yourself. It's a totally different question about whether you're getting the ROI that you need out of the networking event. And all I'm suggesting is to go to random networking events, even if you're enjoying yourself, and get the ROI out of those events versus something more activity-based or something that is totally specific to you and your strengths and your talents, and really kind of a customized networking approach and strategy. The latter two are going to have much, much higher ROI. So that's all I mean. Okay, excellent questions. Okay. This is the, I think it might be the last thing or the second to last thing that I want to note, is that this is, David Burkus wrote a good book. He wrote a very good book. It's called Friend of a Friend, and it's about the science of networking. If you do nothing else, go buy his book. Go buy his book, because it is so good. And one of the things that he talks about is to shift our mindset entirely around networking. So what he says is, instead of thinking about networking as, or a network as something you have to create or grow or build, he says the truth is we already exist inside of one. Our network is not a Rolodex separate from us to be used by us, but rather we're an integrated part of a bigger whole. this is such a beautiful concept, because what it does, that minor shift in mindset does one very important thing for us. It relieves us of the burden of feeling like we're at square one and have to go create this big thing, that this mountain that we have to climb that feels impossible. How much easier is it to think that, no, we're already in a network. I don't have to go create one. I don't have to build one. I don't have to grow one. I'm already in one. And I just need to peel back the layers. And I just have to figure out how to tap into the threads of the existing network. I love this concept, because especially if you haven't had a habit of networking, like, so what happens for some of my clients is they've been in a job for 6 years and they haven't really networked. Like, they haven't networked in the way that, like, the Google articles say you should network, right? Because they don't like it, right? But they've been in the job for 6 years and now they need to find another job, and they kind of look around and they're like, well, my network is just full of people that I work with currently, right? And so now this concept of, now that I have a goal and I need to find another job, suddenly I have to start networking from scratch, and it's overwhelming. But what if you just thought you're already in a network, okay? You just have to surface the ties. You have to surface the ties, right? So you don't have to grow or create, or you don't have to meet all these new people necessarily. All you need to do is take some steps. Like, think about activities, either professional or outside of the professional setting, that you can leverage. Think about dormant ties, like, who haven't I talked to in a really long time that I could just give a friendly call to? All of these things are possibilities if we think, I'm already in a network and I don't have to go make something. The other thing that's really beautiful about this is the world is getting smaller. So this is a Facebook study that was done in 2011 with their members, and then they recreated the study in 2016. But what you'll see is just among Facebook members, it doesn't matter if you use Facebook or you like Facebook or whatever, it doesn't matter. But in 2011, among their members, okay, there were 3.74 degrees of separation between anybody, right? You could connect to random individuals by 3.74 degrees. Crazy. Under 4 people. Everybody in Facebook land is connected by under 4 people. Isn't that mind-boggling? And then in 2016, when they recreated the study, that number is going down. The number is going down. So the world is getting smaller and smaller, which is beautiful for us, because if we're already existing within a network and we don't have to go create it and meet all these people, it's just a matter of identifying and surfacing the ties that already exist, right? And you don't have to go way out of your way in order to find new leads, find the opportunities, find new connections. They're closer to you. They're closer to you. This is really good news. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through a couple of case studies of people that I have worked with. And for a couple of these people, I've changed their names because they gave me permission to use them as case studies. But because they were looking for a job, they didn't want their employers to know that they were looking for a job. So the first is Julie. So this was somebody who wanted to do a career pivot. So I have some clients who are trying to optimize their performance in an existing role. Some people just want to find a new job. Some people want to pivot to a totally different industry altogether. And Julie was one of them. And so she came to me because she needed to learn how to network, because she knew nobody in the industry that she wanted to work in. And And as part of the novel networking program, the idea, the philosophy behind it is, rather than blindly following best practices, we are going to find what works for you in particular. And so as we were going through this brainstorming exercise, I said, you know what you should do is there's an element to this that will involve just, calling people, contacting people out of the blue, right? You want to find, players in this industry. You want to talk to people who are informed, people who are decision makers. So go ahead and contact them. And she said, she stopped me right there because she was like, why would they talk to me? I'm never going to get any response. That's crazy. And I said, okay, well, don't tell them you're looking for a job. Okay. And don't do the usual, like, I'd really love to talk to you about your company and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Listen, if these people are industry leaders, it might be a good way to it might be good to get on their calendar by just asking them very provocative questions about their industry, what keeps them up at night, what they're really excited about, thinking out the next 3 to 5 years. What trends do you anticipate? What trends are you seeing? Tap into their intellectual curiosity about the industry that they've dedicated their whole work life to, right? Think about it. These people, for the most part, they have, day in and day out, they probably have calls and meetings and they're running from one thing to the next. Maybe they're getting emails and phone calls from people who are like, oh, I'd really love to hear about your blah, blah, blah. Who cares, right? But if they get that email or that call from the one person who's like, I recognize you as an industry expert and I want to tap into that expertise, and I have already contacted some of, your colleagues in this space. So once I said that, Julie was like, she's like, this is amazing. So it turns out she got a degree in journalism and never used it. So, like a lot of people, she got her degree, then she found a job right out of school. And then, she's a smart, talented person. And so smart, talented people tend to do well wherever they land, wherever they end up. So, but she was at a point where she didn't want to do the job that she had ended up in. But she was a journalism major. And so this concept of like interviewing people was just, she was so excited about it. But then she said, well, what am I supposed to do with all, like, so I have a conversation with them and then what? And I was like, oh my gosh, you should write an article. And she said, what? That's crazy. Where would I write an article? Like what, And I said, it doesn't have to be like, Wall Street Journal. You could write an article on LinkedIn. You could, if you have a blog, you could put it somewhere in the public domain. Oh, Medium is another one. You could put it somewhere where you could create that link and now send that link to other people, right? So, gosh, how cool would it be to send a LinkedIn message to some of these industry leaders in the sector that you want to get into and say, I really admire what you guys have been doing. I've contacted a few of your colleagues. I'm writing an article and I want to tap into your expertise. I might try to identify trends in the next 3 to 5 years in this industry. Like, go do that thing. I don't know. For somebody else, it would be totally different. But for Julie, right, she tapped into her skills, her expertise, her sweet spot, the thing that she was so passionate about. And you know what? That's her networking style. I guarantee you, Julie is not going to networking events. She's not, right? She wrote a beautiful article. She ended up posting it on LinkedIn. And then she ended up doing a series because she circulated that LinkedIn article. And she tapped into other industry leaders who at first didn't bite, right? So she contacted like 20 people and maybe 3 got back to her. Well, she wrote an article based on those 3 people's input. And then she circulated it back to the other 17. And she said, look, remember that message that I sent you? Well, here it is. And here's the resulting article. I'd love to do a part 2, but I was thinking about this other provocative question instead. Do you want in? And listen, does it sound like a lot of work? Yeah. But you know what? Compared to the hours that people are like tweaking their resume and scrolling through online job posts and, customizing their cover letters and write an article. It's like a 500-word article you could just post in an afternoon, and it can have huge impact for you. But just be clear, this is networking. This is networking. Okay. Second case study. Gordon is somebody that I've worked with for a number of years. His networking style is very interesting because Gordon is a consummate networker, but as I've watched him over the years, he has one very particular effective style that I didn't realize at first, but is just so brilliant. So Gordon is a broker. He brokers introductions. Okay. So what Gordon does is he is able to walk into a room full of people that he doesn't know. And just in small conversations with people, sidebar conversations, but like 5-minute conversations with people, he will pick up on one thing that they said, one thing that triggers a memory or some relevance or whatever to something that he talked to somebody else about before. And what he says is he's like, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to Bob. Would you like me to introduce you to Bob? That's all he does. That's all he does. Listen, this is so good. This is so good. Because number one, the way the brain works in remembering people's names and remembering who people are and where they're from is to, rather than have the brain just try to remember somebody in isolation, you're actually better at remembering people in association with other things. So the more connections that you make, the more the brain remembers, right? So if you meet Jane and you later talk to Bob, but you remember one thing about Jane and you make an introduction to Jane and Bob, those 2 people are now further reinforced in your mind. So that's number 1. That's a beautiful way of reinforcing and remembering the contacts that you make. But secondly, look, Gordon isn't doing anything but saying you should talk to this other person. That's it. It's not like this big grand strategy of, having an elevator pitch and, learning how to talk about so-and-so and this other thing and that other thing and how you come off and blah. Listen, he's just saying you should talk to this other person. So simple. But the reason that networking style really works is because you make the other person feel really good. Right? Because it's hard to be in a large room or at a conference or a meeting or whatever it might be, and to have somebody say, I will do a warm introduction for you. It's a very gracious gesture that people are going to be really thankful for. They're going to think, wow, that is really kind. And you know what ends up happening? Everybody knows Gordon's name. I mean, everybody knows Gordon's name. He has introduced people like all over the place. Maybe he's only worked with like 5% of the people in his network, right? But everybody knows who he is. I just think such a brilliant networking style. Anna is another one. So Anna has in her particular situation, she was nervous about a big scientific meeting that she had to go to in Chicago. Her job was to go to this massive international scientific meeting and meet with people who had done research and open up the possibility for um, establishing partnerships or collaborations and things like this. And she just had so much anxiety about this. She didn't know a soul. So the thought of going to this huge international meeting was extremely intimidating to her. And she could not figure out, like, how, she was like, I'm just supposed to like walk up to somebody in a busy conference center, and they're probably, this researcher has a poster presentation and he's probably, surrounded by other people, and I'm just supposed to sharpen my elbows, get in front of him. And this is the whole thing. This is the equivalent of, my old boss telling me, well, you just need to get more aggressive. This was Anna's situation, and she was just too stressed out about it. She's like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this. And so with Anna, she said something like offhand. She had an offhand comment when she was telling me about all her stress. And she said, I'm totally fine with people one-on-one, but it's in big crowds or big groups where I have all the anxiety. And I said, well, if you're fine talking to people one-on-one, that must be your networking style. And she said, well, yeah, fine. But it's not like I can meet all these people one-on-one. And I said, why not? You should go make that happen. And so what we ended up doing is, for those scientific meetings, you can usually get a list of people who are registered, or at least the companies and the organizations who are going to be represented there. And I said, do some, 6 weeks before the conference, go ahead and do some research. See if you can identify the people. You already know the scientists who you want to meet with. See if you can get a hold of them in advance. And she did this. And like Julie, she had a list of maybe 100 people. And so she only got a hold of a smaller percentage of that, but it was still an amazing outcome, because what she did in 6 weeks before the meeting is she met with those people one-on-one, had coffee with them, she had lunch with them. Sometimes she would only have like a half-hour call with them, but that was great because she's so good one-on-one. She feels so comfortable, and she got a chance to talk about their research with them without the crowds, without the distraction, without the anxiety. And you know what? She actually got feedback from the people who she reached out to. The people that she reached out to, they said, thank God, nobody else has called me in advance. And that meeting is a freaking zoo. And I'm so glad I had a chance to talk about my work with you in advance. And then what happens? Then the meeting comes, and Anna, so good to see you. Oh, it's good to meet you in person. Oh, now she's Bella the Ball because she knows all these people. So we went from having so much anxiety about being in a huge conference and needing to meet people and being there all alone in a room full of strangers and having all this pressure to establish partnerships and collaborations, to identifying what she's comfortable with and just leveraging the heck out of that. How do we make what she's comfortable with work for her? And, we called that the sidebar strategy. He ended up just doing all these sidebars with people before the meeting, then during the meeting, and after the meeting, right? But all of that anxiety went away. So these are some really good example. That's you too. I know there's so many people that have this particular networking angst, where you are showing up in a room full of people and then suddenly you feel like you're on, right? That's horrible. Stage fright. I know. So everybody take this sidebar strategy and if you can track down people who are going to be there, or, whatever, just say, hey, I noticed that you're going to be at that meeting. I'm going to be there too. Would you mind doing an intro call in advance? They will take you up on it. Here's the other thing. You think that you're the only one with this anxiety. I promise you, you're not. Everybody else who has this anxiety, if they got an email from somebody saying, I'm going to be there too, do you want to talk, do an intro in advance? Oh my gosh, absolutely. They would say, yeah, sign me up, please. I want to talk with you. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so here are the just in terms of review. Number one, personality type doesn't dictate how good of a networker you are. Number two, dormant ties are the key to opening opportunities. Get out of your pond. Okay, you are already within a robust network that you can leverage. Stop thinking that you're starting from zero and you need to go build this massive thing and it just is overwhelming. Nope, you're already in a network. Next, the world is small. Contacts and opportunities are closer than you might think. And not only that, they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Lastly, and this is the whole point, I promise you this is everything about the novel networking program, is you need to surface your particular networking styles and strategies. And this is how you go from, thinking that networking is obnoxious and annoying and fake to having it be really comfortable, really authentic. Okay, so this is the program. This is kind of the curriculum, okay? So you're going to learn how to leverage your particular strengths and talents. There is some pre-work. So anybody who's going to be participating in this group coaching program, I'll want you to do a strengths assessment. So if you have done a strengths assessment in the past, maybe within the last 2 years, that's fantastic. We can use that. If you haven't done it before, you'll need to do it before we even start. Next, we'll discover the power of a customized networking campaign. So we have a goal, okay? We have a purpose to our networking. And like anything, we have to treat it as a project. Okay, so there's something that I've created called a networking campaign. So I'm going to teach you how to create that and how to integrate it into your work life. We're going to review active listening techniques. People are always concerned about what to say. How do I tell it? How do I go, what do I tell people? What do I say to people? And learning what to say gets a lot easier if you know how to listen. If you know how to listen, you don't have to conjure so much up in terms of what to say. You can respond to what the other person's saying. It makes it easier. Rapport building strategies. Okay, these are a lot of simple things about how people perceive body language and other things. So I'll teach you that stuff and you can leverage the heck out of that. Then we're going to practice. We're going to practice talking about yourself comfortably. As part of the group coaching program, we're going to be using Zoom. And one of the things that we'll have an opportunity to do is, as we learn some of these concepts and as you do the exercises, the group coaching program is not a networking program in and of itself. Okay, so I'm not going to be setting people up to network with each other. Now, if that happens, fantastic, but that's not the purpose. Its primary purpose is for us to learn. All of us are learning. All of us are practicing. So this is going to be a really safe environment for you to practice. So we can do pair-ups, get into, small breakout rooms of 3 or 4, where you guys can take turns and kind of, learn these things and get comfortable with these things in a safe environment with people who are also learning those exact same things. And then execute on effective, genuine, and specific follow-up tactics. Listen, this is something that, for all the best practices that you find when you Google networking, they always tell you, they dictate exactly how you should do follow-up. Listen, people get so frustrated because they do the follow-up and then they don't get any response. Okay. So the whole point of novel networking is if you are leveraging your particular talents, you're developing your own networking strategy, you are employing active listening techniques, and you're in your comfort zone and building truly meaningful professional relationships. You know what? Sometimes those follow-up best practices don't even apply. They're going to, as part of the customized networking campaign, we're going to have to find ways to do the follow-up that's going to make sense for you, that's really effective for what you're trying to accomplish. And maybe it involves those, standard best practices. Maybe it involves something else. Okay. All right. So here is the program. 6 weeks, guys. That's it. 6 weeks. Listen. I only work with very smart, accomplished, talented people. We don't need to do this for 3 months. 6 weeks, $879. And this is how it's set up. I do everything through, all the material that you're going to get is through Google Classroom, actually. So it's free. You don't even need a Google account a Gmail account to access, but most people do have it. So either way, it's totally fine. So that's where all the training materials, all the exercises, all the resources, all the homework, okay, is going to be delivered through that channel, and you guys will have access to that channel. The live coaching, okay, there's going to be six actual sessions that we're going to do through Zoom, okay? So the people in your group, and these are going to be groups of anywhere from 4 to 6 people. It will all meet at the same time. It will be live. We will use video. Yes, video. So don't be in your car driving home. That's not going to do it. Okay. We were going to put all the distractions away. You're going to be fully present. Okay. With fellow students. Okay. And we're going to go through this together, and we're all going to be on video so that we can see each other. We can give each other some real feedback, okay? And we can build those relationships. In addition to the 6 sessions, there are going to be 4 Q&A sessions or breakouts. So sometimes I start them at I call these office hours, but I'll set up a time, and these are optional. But the people who get the most out of this program are always on those Q&A calls and those breakout calls, because this is where you practice. So there are some people who show up for the live, the educational training, then they go do their homework, and then they go away. And then the people who show up for the Q&As and the breakout sessions and the office hours, and where they get some situational coaching, and then they hear from other people. So not only are you getting your own questions answered, but you're hearing from other people's scenarios, and you're learning from that's going to be the best. That's going to be the hugest ROI here. So there are going to be 4 of those. And then because this is a group program, it's cheaper than my individual novel networking program. So you can sign up for the novel networking program on a one-on-one basis. And that's something like, I don't know, I forget how much it is. I forget. It's like $2,000 or something like that. I forget. So this is more cost effective, but then you don't have direct one-on-one coaching with me. So one thing that I've done is I've inserted a complimentary, one-on-one coaching session with me, and you can use that at any time, right? So you can use it at the very beginning. You can use it like midway through. You can use it at the end of the program. And whatever you want for me to coach you on, that will be included. So that's it. 6 weeks, $879. Oh my God, guys, this is such a good deal. And you know what? I'm going to make it even better. You want to see? Okay, I have bonuses. Okay, the reason I have bonuses is because when I tell people when I'm going to be starting the program, I get people signing up at the last minute. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. It's true. I'm scrambling before I'm trying to launch the program. So if you purchase within the next 5 days, I'll just give you some extra stuff. I'll give you extra stuff, okay? One is a set of planning tools. I have a planner graveyard over here. I've tried so many planners over the years. And I for a long time, I wished I had, this piece of that planner and this piece of that planner and that piece of that planner. And I could never find a planner that had, so I just made my own. I made my own, and the Aurelian Coaching Career Prime Planner is one that is uniquely suited to novel networking campaigns, customized networking campaigns. And so that is going to be a tool that is just a very natural bonus as part of this program. Secondly is just quality resource. I'm going to give you guys some books that are a little bit less traditional. Like, you can go on Amazon and Google networking and then you'll find all the things. But I have found a couple of things that I think are uniquely aligned to what I'm trying to accomplish in novel networking, and I think will support what we're trying to do here. So you'll get a few books, maybe some other resources. And then I'm going to throw in an extra one-on-one session. So instead of one, you will get 2 hour-long sessions, my undivided attention, whatever you need to be coached on. Whatever you need to be coached on. So you can get everything that you need about networking out of the novel networking program, out of those 6 training sessions and the 4 Q&As. And you may want to use the 2 one-on-one sessions with me to talk about career mindset issues, or to talk about other things that came up in your employee feedback form this past December that you don't know how to address, or, navigating politics, office politics on the job. Those 2 complementary one-on-one sessions are sky's the limit in terms of topic, not limited to any topic at all. Okay. So do you want to purchase within 5 days? Okay, so here, there are some questions. So this is what I want you to do. So if you want to sign up, here's my email address. This is not super fancy, guys. Okay, literally, you send me an email, say, I want to do this. Okay, we're going to be starting the week of February 18. So mid-February, okay? But I have planning to do, and I have to set people up in groups. So you need to tell me in the next 5 days if you want those bonuses. You can sign up after that. You just don't get the bonuses. So just shoot me an email. Your name, you have the email address that you want me to use, to get stuff to you for Google Classroom and other things like that. And then your shipping address, so I can send you all the fun bonuses. Once you send me that email, I'll send you an invoice. It'll have a link for you to pay by credit card, and then we're off to the races. Okay. So there are some questions. So let me go through these pretty quickly. And again, if you guys need to take off, I totally understand. I went over 40. I was trying to shoot for 40, but you'll get a recording of this. Okay. So there are a couple questions about the dollar figure. So, so the $879. I don't have a payment plan. So yeah, it does need to be $879 up front. And there's no refunds. So that's the other question that I always get. There's no like 30-day money back guarantee. Okay. I'm not selling widgets here. This is an investment in yourself. Okay. This is like, if you do all the things here, this is not like you're giving money to somebody else for them to do something with. Okay. This is money you're investing in yourself. So you have the greatest control over what you're getting for your money. It's all you. You get to decide. You get to be all in 100%. You get to execute. You get to make all the decisions here. Okay. So whenever you invest in yourself, whenever that happens, you always have the greatest control over your investment. And therefore, you always have the potential for the greatest ROI compared to when you just give your money to somebody else to do something with. Because then you just hope and you hope that they're doing something good with it. And there's always more risk there than there is with executing on what you invest in for yourself. So no payment plans, no refunds. Oh, but this didn't come up in the chat, but it came up previously. If you want your company to pay for it, that's fine. I don't care who pays me, but let me know what the requirements are for you to seek reimbursement. And I'll only do reimbursement. So this is not something where like I will go separately bill the company or things like that. I mean, I have done that before, but that's an exception. Usually it's just, I need to provide some additional paperwork or something in order for you to submit for reimbursement for from your company. And that's totally fine. Okay, there was, so yeah, a lot of the questions were about cost or payment plans. Yeah, and just to confirm, like there is no, it's not like if you don't sign up within the next 5 days that you can't. I'm just trying to incentivize people. So you can contact me, you can email me on day 6 and say, okay, I'm in, and I will definitely let you in. You just won't get the bonuses. Okay, a couple more things. So I'm starting in the week of February 18. There's, one thing that people have asked me before is whether I will have like a separate Facebook group or anything like that for people in novel networking. I do have a general free Facebook group. It's called the Career Prime Facebook group. So you can find that under Aurelian Coaching. But every group is different. Every group has its own vibe. It has its own flavor to it. I am more than happy to set up a group, whether it be through Facebook. So I've done Facebook before. Some people hate Facebook. So I've done Mighty Networks. Some people are familiar with Slack because that's what they use at their organizations. Fine. I'll set up a Slack channel. Some people just like using email or just going through Google Classroom. So it depends. Is there a separate group? There can be. We will get to decide what works best for our group. Okay. How are the groups set up? Yeah, it depends. What the main driver is time availability. So a lot of people say, well, I only want to be involved in a group who is also, in pharma. No, I can't, I can't guarantee that I have like, these 6 people are all in pharma and therefore you guys will all go through this together. The whole point of this is that the more diverse you can see networking strategies, how diverse they are, the more creativity that you will bring to your own networking goals, right? The more diverse the groups, the better and more productive people are. Because what happens is when people, because I have done that before where I have people, they're not all in pharma, but they're in pharma or biotech or medical device or, something like that. Like I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, so there's a lot of tech here. And what happens is that everybody likes it because they all speak the same language. The problem is everything is so siloed. There's no, they suffer from lack of creativity and lack of exposure to different thinking. And it, those, I'm not saying that those groups are not successful or they're not effective. It's just that I think the groups benefit from more diversity. And look, I just can't guarantee that the number one driver for all of these is going to be what times you can actually participate. That's just such a huge driver. So um, I, yeah, I'm not just doing one group session. Like I like to have groups of four to six to keep it more intimate. So, you know, like if I have multiple, I can have multiple groups. That's not a problem. So don't think that if you're not in the first six that you're out. That's not the case. But we'll find a way to make it work. And if it means that I have to have multiple smaller sessions, smaller groups, just because that's what we're, you know, like 3 groups of 3, yeah, if I, you know, I can do that too. So it really depends on availability and timing. But if you make this investment, guys, you gotta commit. You gotta commit. You know, people are like, you know, I'm going to spend, you know, $1,000 and I'll do my best. You're not going to get the ROI. So this is a commitment. It's a commitment, and you're going to get a lot out of it that is going to serve you. Think about this for the rest of your career. The rest of your career. This is not like, you know, learn a little thing that'll help you in the next month. This is pretty huge, and it's a really good program. So I hope you guys will join. Again, there's my email. And if other questions come up, go ahead and email me. I'll send out a recording of this webinar as well as an FAQ for anything that I didn't get to. Okay, so that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Thanks for joining, and I hope to hear from you. Okay, bye-bye now.